Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. This is Julie Bruns, and you are about to be inspired. I am so excited to share my conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who figured out how to be happy, peaceful, and content doing work they love and making the world a better place so that you can see what's possible for your life. I can't wait to hear what you think. Send me an email and let me know one thing you're taking away from this episode. And never forget, anything really is possible. So welcome to this episode, everyone. My guest this week is Erin Stutland. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
So Erin and I, it's the first time we're talking. Well, actually, the second time we talked on the phone. But I learned about Erin's work through something new I've been trying for the last couple of months. I haven't talked about it at all on my podcast, but EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique tapping. I've heard about it for years. I've heard other people talk about it, other people that I follow and admire, but I've never tried it. I wasn't opposed to it. I was just like, I'm meditating. I got my gratitude practice. I do my thing every morning. And in December, I'm like, I'm going to try this also. So now I have 3 things I do every morning. Well, actually 4 probably now. So I just added it to my repertoire in the morning. And you came across Erin because one of the, I think it was the book I read about tapping, Jessica Order's book, Weight Loss and Body Confidence, that tapping book. And I think that's how I found it. It's either that or through the app. And I saw you and it was a bonus and your book and what you do. So you can talk about more about what that is. But I found you and I was like, I'm going to reach out to her because it looked like you love what you do. And that's what this podcast is all about. So that's why you're here. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, Jessica Orner is wonderful. She's a longtime friend of mine. And there's a lot of synergy between what we do.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's talk about that. So tell everyone what you do, how you figured it out, and if you always saw yourself with the career you have now.
Yeah. So I like to say that my business is sort of at the intersection of fitness and mindfulness. So it's not hardcore fitness. It's not about weight loss. It's really about, I believe that movement in your body creates movement in your life. And my background was a dancer. I was a dancer growing up. So movement has always been a very big part of my life. And for me, movement has always been an expression of myself. Movement has been a way to find joy. Movement has been a way to find peace. When I was at the ballet bar growing up, it was about getting centered and finding peace and calm and sort of a time of my life that felt very chaotic. So for me, movement has always been about mindfulness. That's what dance is. And so when I was living I lived in New York for 20 years. I moved to New York just shortly after I graduated college. I danced with a professional company and I was acting and I was, as an artist, you are constantly doing all these different things to piecemeal your life together to sort of make money. And I was, at the time, fitness, it was either you did fitness at the gym or you did yoga. That's what was available at the time. Mm-hmm. And I loved the energy of fitness, the high energy, the music, the camaraderie, the moving together in a room to the beat of the music. I love that. But I loved the mindfulness of yoga. I loved the intentionality of yoga. I loved the life principles of yoga and the spirituality of yoga. And I was studying with this really wonderful woman who was kind of bringing those two together. I studied under her, and then I started to develop my own practice of bringing that like high energy fitness with mindfulness together. And in terms of, how did I get to do what I'm doing? Like, as I said, I was an artist. That's who I was. Like, my passion was making things. I just wanted to make things. I wanted to create things, whether it was I wanted to write a story, or I wanted to write a sitcom, or I wanted to write a song, or I wanted to do a play. Like, it was really all about making things. And so and I loved movement, obviously. So when I sort of saw this opportunity to bring those two worlds together of making something, creating something, giving something, sharing with something that I was really passionate about, which is movement, was sort of how the business was sort of born.
What's the name of the business and your book?
So right now I have a subscription platform that's called The Movement, and that's the name of the method that I teach, The Movement. And inside The Movement, inside the subscription, there are meditations, there are workouts, there's something that I have called the Soul Stroll, which is a really unique product, which is energizing playlist. I'm coaching over it with mantras and keeping you sort of in this really beautiful groove. And my book is called Mantras in Motion, Manifesting What You Want Through Mindful Movement. because I think that there's something really powerful. There's so much information out there around manifesting, around mindfulness, and it's great information. But I think what happens, why it doesn't ultimately help people really truly transform, is because, and you sort of know this because you're doing this every morning in your practices, some of these ideas are just intellectual ideas. So you're like, oh, that's a great idea, I should do that. Or you think about it. But what happens is that your body has a whole other story attached to it. Your body has memory in it. Your body remembers things. This is why EFT is so powerful. And so you might say to yourself an affirmation, you might say like, I am powerful. But your body is like, but yesterday in the meeting, you didn't even speak up.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say anything, and your body remembers that. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why we sometimes struggle to manifest things, to create things in our life, because we have one story in our head and we have a different story in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so the work that I do is about how do we integrate those two? How do we get those ideas? I am powerful, I am strong, I am kind, I am loving, whatever it is, into our body so that we feel it, so that it becomes a part of us, so that it's not just an intellectual idea.
I love that. I was just reading some of my journal yesterday and I wrote down something from last year. I was in this program called Your Year of Miracles. It's with Marcy Shimoff and Dr. Sue Morter. She's Energy Codes book she wrote. It's a phenomenal program, but so it's a year-long program. Every month you meet and you talk about all these different concepts like spirituality and mindfulness and being empowered, all of these awesome things that help basically bring your life to another level. And one of the things Dr. Sue Morter said was, if it doesn't exist in your body, it can't exist in your life. And I was like, I wrote that down and I remember it being a light bulb moment for me. And then I read it again yesterday. I'm like, and like you said, so it's up here, it exists here. I can do this. But if you don't feel it down here, you can't create it out here because your body's like, it's going against what you believe. It's not in sync or aligned with what you want to think or see or whatever. And so that's, like you said, the tapping has been really valuable for me because you have to get whatever it's blocking you out of your body or out of the energy of your mind, stuff that's not helpful, so that you can have what you want, but you have to feel it in your body, good or bad, before you can actually create it outside.
That's right. And you have to clear what's going on. You can't just put, a positive idea and try to like get that into your body. You have to that's why movement is so powerful, because in motion there is emotion. And the idea is that when we move, like if you have the intention to move when you're working out or whatever it is you're doing, and if your intention is to feel, you will be amazed at what kinds of feelings come up through movement. And that is the opportunity to say, wow, like things are moving, I'm feeling things, to clear them out, and then to plant new seeds of that power, those powerful mindset. So it's really a wonderful and exciting practice. And
it is. And I walk every day outside. I mean, even when it's cold out, I walk. And I always have new ideas when I'm walking. I always have new perspectives. I always come home and my husband's always like, you're like a different person when you walk back in. Or like, he can tell when I walked that day and when I haven't, because he's like, you're like really hyper and really, like thinking about all the things you discovered or saw or whatever it was. And I almost always have a new idea or an insight when I'm walking. And I mean, that's just proof of the body moving.
Same. So I'm like I'm a huge proponent in my business. I talk about the two. Walking is like, if people are like, what's your number one tip to start to create movement in your body and movement in your life? I'm like, walking. It's the most basic, simple thing. And, it's really just about putting one foot in front of the other. And that's life for you, right? Let's just take one step at a time. That's what walking is. So I love that you do it. I think it's one of the most powerful things we can do for our minds and our body.
Like it is literally one foot in front of the other. Walking is what you have to do with life anyways to move forward, right?
Totally.
Okay. So as you built this career and you're doing how long have you been doing this work? How many?
I have been doing, hold on, I'm getting a notification that says my thing is not plugged in. Wait, give me 1 second, because,
So how long have you had your business?
I've been running my business for over almost 15 years now.
Wow.
So I've been in business a really long time. Mm-hmm.
So do people ask you a lot about either starting how you did it, start your own business, or do they ask you career advice? Like, I want to do meaningful work like you're doing. How did you figure it out? What do you, first of all, I'm sure that people have asked you that. What do you say to them? Or what do you say to younger people that say like, I want to do something like that, or I don't want to do that, but I know I want to do something else. What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think There's a couple things. I would say two major things. The first one is you have to know what your core values are. What your core values are. And these are the values that are not given to you. They are not placed on you. They are not your parents' values. They are inherent. They are like practically what you were born with. And actually, I do have a wonderful core values exercise inside my book. So it's really about finding, what your core values are and what is most important to you. So for me, I know that like creation and creativity is part of my core value. So when you can identify your core values, you can say, okay, I need to set up my life so that I stay in alignment with my core values. And if your core values, say, are creativity, and you went to school for banking and you get into banking, and you're like, there's no, like, you're going to feel out of alignment, right? And so the one thing you want to start to do is identify what your core values are. And just to share a quick example, for me, creativity and connection and movement. Those are like three of my core values. I, as I said, was a dancer, and then I was an actor, and I thought, and I love to perform. Performing hits on creativity, connection, and movement, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that's what I meant to do. And when I started my business, I was like, but do I want to give up performing? And as I started to get into my business and realize that there's also, connection, creativity, and movement in my business, you see that you can start to transfer. It doesn't mean you can only do one thing, right? There's lots of different things you can do if you stay in alignment with your core values. You're not just dedicated to one thing for the rest of your life. Even as I think about what sort of my next chapter in my life, let's say I don't want to continue running this particular business, I will still use the ideas of connection, creativity, and movement into figuring out what's next. That's always going to be there. So I think that's sort of number one. And then the other thing is that you have to be willing to go for it. You have to be willing to take risks, and you have to be willing to say, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I'm going to just go for it. I'm going to try things. And as an actor and as a performer, like, I had every job under the sun that you can imagine before I sort of landed on my business. And I think you can't be afraid to just try things and to fail and to feel like, that's not it. I don't want to do that. That was kind of interesting. There were pieces of that were interesting, but that's not quite it. That's not quite right. And for me, like, I didn't really start my business until I was, just under 30. So it wasn't like, I was performing before that and feeling a lot of satisfaction, but you just have to keep trying things and keep showing up and putting yourself out there and not be afraid to fail and not even see it as failure, but see it as a learning opportunity.
I was listening to a video with Jessica today, yesterday, about a quote that she got from Arianna Huffington saying, Arianna Huffington's mom said, failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it.
Yes,
so
beautiful.
Right. And it's just, I've never heard that saying before. And obviously if I hadn't heard Arianna Huffington say it, I wouldn't have, maybe she wrote it somewhere. But it's beautiful because it's true. It's not like, oh, I'm failing, so I'm not successful. It's like, no, it's part of figuring it out, taking the risk, trying something new. And if that's not working, trying something new. I'm trying something in my life right now, and it's not happening the way I want it to happen. And it hasn't been for taking me longer than I thought. But even my husband and I were just talking last night. Well, what else can I try differently? It's like, okay, this way I'm doing it's working to a point, but it's not getting me over the finish line. So I need to shift my thinking. I need to try something different. I woke up today, I'm like, all right, I'm trying this, this, and this. I'm just going to try some new things. I'm going to try this new way for a month. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to try something else. But I'm not just going to keep doing the same thing and not have it work for me, or, whatever it is, just get some new ideas. I'm meeting friends and I'm going to get brainstorming with them or whatever. But you can't just be like, all right, that's it, because that's not how life works.
Right.
You got to keep trying new things.
You got to keep trying. You got to keep checking in with yourself, which sounds like what you're doing. You got to keep, brainstorming ideas. And that's the beauty of like that walk. You got to keep putting one foot in front of the other to try to figure it out. But you can't, I think one of the beauties of starting a business when I did is that I was performing and I was putting myself out there all the time as an actor, auditioning, right? And as an actor, you're constantly failing. Like, you're constantly not getting a job. You're constantly getting the rejection more so than you are getting the acceptance. And so it was, when I started my business, it was at a time in my life where I was like, oh, I could do whatever I want. I don't have to wait for someone to give me permission to put myself out there. So for me, it was like there was a lot of freedom in putting myself out there as a business owner. But truth be told, as I've gotten older and I've been in this longer, there's some ways in which when I think about, okay, what do I want to do next, or what do I want to say, I still feel that fear of putting myself out there. Like, should I say this thing? Like, people aren't used to hearing this thing from me. So I understand what that's like when you're starting a business. I still feel that in my life very much. But I think, another point that I would share is, and this depends on what your values are, but for me, it's like, I have to live in full expression. If I'm not living in full expression of myself, like, I'm not going to be satisfied. I'm not going to be happy. And if I'm not telling the truth about who I am, what's in my heart, what's on my mind, I am not going to be happy or satisfied. And so I always have to come back and check in. Is this the fullest expression of myself right now? And whenever I say, oh, I don't want to write that thing, or I don't want to post that thing, or I don't want to say that thing in a newsletter, and then I say, can you give the fullest expression of yourself? And I do it, I feel a million times better. Yeah. I feel alive. And so that's something else to consider is, is there any part of you that's holding back from being in the full expression of yourself?
I love that thought. And two, whether you have a business or you have a career or you're figuring out what you want to do in your life in general, I have friends that are in their 50s and they're like, okay, what's this next chapter? And do I need to work? Do I want to work? All those things. It's like, whether you have a business or not, the bottom line is you're trying to figure out how to express yourself, and you're always going to be challenged with, if you're the boss of yourself or you work for someone else, you're always going to be challenged with, do I want to say this thing? Is this true for me? And will I regret saying this or whatever? It doesn't matter how old you are. And it doesn't matter if you're a business owner or a worker bee or whatever, or waiting tables. It doesn't matter. You still have to be yourself. And you're still going to be afraid of saying certain things. Sometimes I don't think that ever really goes away. It gets a little bit easier, I think, as you get older, because you're like, well, what's the risk of that? Nothing. Or do I care as much about what that person thinks about me as I do when I was 25? Probably not. Hopefully not. But in general, that never goes away. So you just have to start getting more comfortable with that. And like you said, if you're more aligned to your core values and what's really important for you, the further you get away from that, and you don't say what you want to say, and it's really aligned to your core value, it gets more difficult not to say it. That gets easier because you're like, okay, this is me. I'm saying it, and I won't regret saying it, whether it lands how I want it to land or not. It's true, whatever it is. It's not gonna hurt the other person. I didn't ask you about how did you, while you were going out and auditioning for roles, while you were dancing, while you were getting rejected a lot, all of those years, and then starting your business, how did you remain peaceful and happy and content along the way? How were you how did you take those rejections and be like, all right, I'm okay. I'm still valuable. I'm still going to go after the next thing I want. How did you transform those no's into staying positive?
Well, I didn't always stay positive, right? There were a lot of hard times and a lot of hard days. And there were, there would be rejections on something you really wanted, or you got really close to something. And it would be, you'd have to kind of go through the disappointment. You're going through a little grief, a little disappointment every time you get rejected, like I said, especially for those big ones. But I think one thing that I did, which made so much sense because it's sort of what I ended up filtering into my business, I tried to look at each rejection and really look at what was the learning here. And I remember this one time I had gone to, it's called going to producers. It means you're getting really close to booking the job for an acting gig. And I just I knew in the room I wasn't nailing it. I just wasn't in the pocket that day. I wasn't, whatever it was. And I left there and I'm like, I did not get that job. And I was so mad at myself. I was so angry that I did did I not prepare enough? Did I not do this enough? Did I not do that enough? And I remember I was on the way, I was visiting a friend in the Hamptons that weekend. So I was on the train. And I'm on this train ride and I'm just in a spiral of beating myself up. And I'm just in this loop. And something higher comes in and is like, Erin, why are you talking to yourself like that? You don't even know it's true. First of all, you don't even know it's true that you didn't get it. I didn't know it was true, but I felt it. I was always pretty good about knowing when I was in the pocket, and it wasn't even whether or not I got it. It was just, I wasn't in full the moment. Right. And so it was more that I started to realize that I had a belief inside of me that if I obsessed about something enough, I would solve the problem, right?
Mm.
So if I beat myself up enough, like you should have done this better, you should have done like that, eventually there would be a solution at the end of that. That's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true for anyone.
Right.
You cannot, if you are trying to get to the destination, like, I love my life, I'm doing great, life is good, you can't get on the train, right? Both metaphorically, and I was actually on a train. You can't get on the train that says, I'm a piece of crap, I'm never good enough. Like, that train that you just got on is not going to take you to the destination. But I had very ingrained in me the belief that if I obsessed enough about something, I would come to a good solution. And so I sat on that train and I was like, whoa, 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 let's slow everything down, right? And I said, okay, we're not going to, I can't think about this. I can't convince myself to say, no, Erin, you did a good job at the audition. Like, that doesn't feel true because
Right.
I felt it in my body, as we talked about. Like, in my body, I was like, no, you definitely didn't. I was like, okay, all right, so that's not true. But what about this? What if we just don't talk about it right now? Let's just put it aside for a minute. Yeah. Because you're not going to come up with a solution by obsessing about it. So I said, let's put it aside for a minute. And I was like, what can you think about in this moment that makes you feel good? What? And I thought about, at the time I was developing a new website. So I started kind of thinking about the creativity of the website. And it's not like, okay, then that was the end of the story. No. That voice of that negativity, obsessing voice kept being like, can we talk about it now? Because I want to talk about it, right? Yeah. Like, and I would find myself, I'd get back sucked into the loop. And then somehow I was like, no. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to try to move ourselves into a better feeling state for now. And then we can deal with that later. We can have a conversation about maybe what you could have done differently. Maybe you're going to reflect on it and you're going to say, you know what, that just wasn't for me, whatever, but you're not going to solve it from this place of spinning out. And I had to just keep gently bringing myself back to being kind, being loving, and thinking about something nice. And by the time I got to the Hamptons, I moved myself into a better feeling state because I thought about things that felt good. And I was able to reflect back on the audition and be like, oh yeah, you probably could have spent a little more time like dropping into the character. Like, I was able to think about it from a loving perspective and a helpful perspective, like what you were saying, it's not failure, it's about learning. And I was able to actually get the learning from it, but not because I was forcing myself and spinning out of control and obsessing about it. And so kind of going back to your initial question, I think that eventually through my auditioning process, I tried to really take learnings out of each failure, like mental, psychological learnings that would help me become a better human being. And that was just an example of one of them. It was a really powerful learning for me about this idea of what is this belief that you need to obsess about something in order to solve something. And I think a lot of us have that. I think it's very common. And it's just not the best way to go about solving.
You can never, is it Einstein saying that you can never come up with the solution to the problem with the same mind that created it?
Correct.
So you're obsessing about it. So you're never going to be, we all do it. At the end, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, I had a brilliant idea. The brilliant idea is coming when you're walking, moving, talking to your friend, husband, whoever it is, figuring things out, brainstorming in a more positive state. Also, I don't know if you follow Esther Hicks, and they have lots of meditations too, but they talk about like the feeling place, like where can you get to a better place that feels good in your body? Just one little thing, like one little thought, like my website, ooh, that brings me some joy. And maybe you didn't stay on that, but then something else, like, oh, you're on the train and you see kids playing outside in the park. Oh, that's nice. Oh, I'm going to see my friend. We're going to have lunch. Oh, that's nice. But any little other thing you can do to feel more positive about it. And then you can get back to, like you said, oh, all right, yeah, maybe I could have prepared a little bit more and it didn't feel right. And would I want to work for those people anyways, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're back to like, okay, I'm going to create a new thing. It's not the end of the world. You're right. You never get it when you're spiraling, and it's hard to do, but I think you get better at it with age and experience and also the tools. So yesterday when I was feeling some of this, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch some positive inspirational videos and I'm gonna listen to people that talk that are super smart and positive, and that's gonna get me out of that headspace. And it helped. Like, all right, something else I can read, get my mind off here, someone else's story, whatever it is, but like, let's get out of my brain for a little bit. That always helps too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions for you. You can answer one or two or all three of them. is there anything, is looking back at your life, is there anything you wish you really would have learned earlier? Like, if I hadn't got that lesson at 25, it'd be so different. That's one question. Another one is, what's the greatest gift that you, Erin, offers the world every day? So you have to brag a little bit. And then the final one is something new you're going to take away from our conversations today.
Wait, so pick one of these?
Yeah, so you can answer all three, but whatever order you want, like a lesson you wish you had learned earlier, your greatest gift, something you're taking away from today.
I think a lesson that I wish I would have learned earlier is to trust who I am. And what I mean by that, that sounds so basic, but what I mean by that is, as I was developing, my business, even when I was in my 20s, and now your 20s are for that, right? You're figuring out who you are, and you're like, maybe I should do it a little more like this person. Maybe I should do it more like this person. But then there was always something inside of me that was like, well, that doesn't feel good. If I do it like that person, that doesn't quite feel right. And as I got older, the more I trusted what felt good, what felt in alignment, what felt real for me. And that, whatever that was, is enough. It's enough. Because I think there's this constant idea, if only I did more, if only I did better, if only I did it this way.
Oh, I don't hear you. One sec. All of a sudden, I don't hear you. Okay.
Sorry about that. So this idea that I'm enough as I am, I think is a big, and it's an ongoing lesson, but I think that, how can you impart that to a 15-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old? That's, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I think about that all the time for her. What kind of messaging am I giving her to make her feel like maybe she's not enough? Or how can I give her the messaging that, even in her imperfections, even when she's having a tantrum, even when she's, not being kind, like she is still so loved. And those are things I love about her dearly. So I think this is an ongoing life lesson. And I think in terms of, which kind of leads to that next question, what's like the gift that I give to the world? To me, the thing that is most important that I teach, that I practice myself, that I'm always learning myself, is how to love yourself more and accept yourself, how to be in a state of acceptance of what is and what is happening in your life at that moment and who you are and all that you are. I think it's like the greatest gift to teach someone that, to give someone that, to practice that, because everything beautiful flows out of that, a state of self-love, a state of self-compassion, quite honestly.
I love that.
And what was the last question again?
So finally, yeah, so I love that answer. So what's one new thing, insight, thought, something that you're going to take away from our conversations today?
Well, I first of all, I thank you so much for having me. I just love connecting with new people and hearing about, and it's so great to see you doing things that are helping other people find their passion and their peace. I loved the quote that you shared from Arianna Huffington. I think that was really powerful, that failure is a part of the process, is a part of the success. I think that needs to be, printed on everyone's computer, a little Post-it note, especially in those times when you feel afraid to put yourself out there. Because I think it really is, we get afraid because we don't want to fail. That's so intrinsic in us. It's part of our reptilian brain that we want to be a part of the tribe. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved. So that's so normal that we'd be afraid. And like you said, that fear is never really going to go away. But if we can reframe it to say that failure is a part of that growing process, I think that kind of quells some of that need to be constantly accepted and loved.
I love that. I know it's something new that I learned. That's what I love about these conversations. I always learn something new. I love talking to new people and hearing new ideas and insights. And even when you feel like you're like-minded, there's always something new to learn. I mean, this is why I do what I do. It's why I've been in training development for over 20 years too. It's like, learning and growing and hearing other people talk and what their insight or whatever. It's just fascinating to me. It never gets boring. And I heard another, I think his name is Brad Yates, and he's I only know him the last couple of days, and I don't know if he does anything other than tapping, but I know
I know Brad.
He said, like when people, are doubting what they're doing and they're going along a certain path, it's like when you make a choice, either it works out for you or it doesn't, but either way, you made a choice, and it could be good and it could be not good in your mind, but the not good really is teaching you you're one step closer to what you really want, or figuring out what you do want. I tell my kids this all the time. It's like, just make a decision. And if it's the wrong one, you can make another decision. It's not like growing up, I always felt like it's like, you have to pick this, and if you're wrong, you're like, now what do I do? I was wrong. It's like, dude, it's okay. You pick a place to live. If it's the wrong place, you can move. You pick a job. If it's the wrong job, you can get another one. There always is really something else. You go down the street, it's the wrong street, you can go down another street. But I just think, I don't know about you, but it just seemed like when I was growing up, and I'm in my 50s now, but when I was growing up, it was all this like, you just have to pick something, and then that's what you're going to do forever, or that's what you're going to do with forever, or whatever it was. And it's like, everything seems so permanent. And especially now, it's like, and I know that I don't really love the impermanence of everyone moving jobs every 2 years and stuff like that. Being committed to something is one thing, but if you're not happy, staying with it just to say I committed to something isn't good either. There's a medium ground, but I just think people they get fearful that they're going to make their mind decisions, so they make none. But if you make no decision, you're still making a decision to stay where
Correct.
you are. Yeah.
Correct.
So many good things. I was taking notes while we talked, and I loved our conversation. And of course, I learned new stuff, and it was fun to learn more about you too. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Julie, and thanks for doing everything that you're doing. I know you make an impact in people's lives.
Thank you. So people want to join the movement and get your videos and mantras and all that stuff, how do they get a hold of you, or what's the best way to learn more about it?
You can come to erinstutland.com. There's all the information there, the movement, erinstutland.com/the-movement. But that's easy to find once you get to Erin Stutland. And you can also find me on Instagram at erin.stutland. And I'm always posting lots of things and links and workshops and new things and cooking classes and
cool.
always exploring and ever growing and evolving. So come find me there, come hang out, send me a message if you enjoyed this conversation. I'd love to continue the conversation with anyone who's listening.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. Thanks everyone for joining. This was a great conversation. I know you're going to be inspired to get moving at least. Bye everyone. Take care. Thanks for listening. I hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, review, and share it. I hope you were truly inspired. And for a little more inspiration, don't forget to pick up my book, Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective: 8 Secrets to Serenity and Satisfaction in Your Life and Career. I can't wait to get you love in your life.